We have John Butler with the Beef Marketing Group, Dan Mosier with AGI, Ron Rowan with Beef Northwest, and Rick Siebel with our host here today, our sponsor, Merck Animal Health. With that, just briefly share and hold your applause in terms of as I get into their backgrounds and they share that, we'll hold it till the end. Share a little bit some of the type of things you're working on, some of your responsibilities. John, let's start on your end of the business.
Thank you, Larry. Appreciate, first of all, the Angus Association and Merck for hosting this. This is a great venue and tremendous opportunity for all of us to get together and look at interesting concepts and where our business is headed. I represent a company in Kansas and Nebraska called the Beef Marketing Group. We're a cattle feeding cooperative. We have 19 feed yards that we feed cattle in, and I guess our base is in Kansas, but we have 12 feed yards in Kansas and 7 in Nebraska. I guess unique to today, we have been very involved in a number of programs focusing on a few things that Lowell suggested, which we'll make some comments on, I think, in a few minutes, around value and increasing value for the cattle that we have the chance to feed and harvest and make available to consumers. And it's a very difficult and challenging opportunity, but one that we feel is really key to our ability to have a sustainable business as we move forward. So we're very excited about being able to participate in a program like this. We're very grateful for the good Angus genetics that we get to feed and participate in a supply chain that ultimately delivers product to a consumer.
Thank you, John. Dan, share a little bit. You're the newest member of the crew, so share a little bit some of the things you're involved with as AGI president.
You bet, Larry. Since the 1st of September, I've had the distinct pleasure to work for you folks, the members of the American Angus Association, as Director of Performance Programs and President of Angus Genetics Incorporated. And I can truly say it's a very enjoyable job that's different every day. But some of the responsibilities that I have along with our crew would be the weekly Angus genetic evaluation, the care and feeding of the Angus database, a very important asset, obviously, to the entire beef industry, and working directly with you as members, whether in groups or individually, to help you better make use of the information that is available and thinking forward about the type of information you'd like in the future. More than anything, my role is to help get to you the kind of information that you need and that your customers need so that you can make the best breeding decisions for your particular program.
Ron, Beef Northwest?
Yeah, Beef Northwest, Larry, was started by John and Jim Wilson in the Pacific Northwest in 1991. They bought a feed yard in Nyssa, Oregon that was built by Joe Albertson of Albertson's supermarket fame. The Wilson family came to northeastern Oregon 125 years ago, 5th generation on the same ranch, but they were primarily stocker operators for a lot of years. Now, Beef Northwest and Wilson Cattle Company are a vertically integrated cattle company. We run about 3,500 mother cows. We manage 40,000 head of grass cattle, and we market 150,000 head of fed cattle, primarily to Tyson and to AB Foods. And my background is in grain and cattle marketing. Been involved with the 3 largest feeders in the Pacific Northwest over the last 33 years, AgriBeef, Simplot, and now Beef Northwest for 19 years. I've been involved with age and source verification, cattle hedging to a large degree, and grain hedging.
Rick, share a little bit of some of the things you're involved with Merck Animal Health.
Thank you, Larry. So I'm the company veterinarian, and simply put, it's all about health, productivity, and the interface of science and production. So I have a whole field of veterinarians that interface with you folks every day. I have a group of folks that answer the 800 number when you need some questions answered. And then, just because I don't have enough to do, I get to hang out with the interface between human health and veterinary medicine. Specifically, lately, it's all about antibiotics and the stewardship therein.
Okay, one of the first questions we're going to ask them to comment on is, as you listen to Dr. Catlett looked to the future a little bit. What were some of the take-home messages? And Rick, we'll start at your end. We'll go a different direction here.
Oh, goodness. I think that I would start off by saying, for the last 30 plus years, when we unloaded a group of cattle off a truck, we made the assumption that we could treat that group as a homogeneous group and they all got equal treatment. But following up on Lowell's conversation and several of the projects that we have, now we have and are investigating technologies that assess individual productivity index off the truck. Are their lungs healthy? Are their feet healthy? Is their digestive system working? An interesting thing that's happening in our industry is that as the value of these calves has exploded, the investment per animal is critically high, and it demands individual information so that we can put that animal in a pen and make sure that that animal can compete effectively with the rest of the pen mates. And so moving forward, lots and lots of folks are going to have information on individuals off the truck that will complement their productivity potential throughout the feeding cycle.
Great, that's excellent. Ron, share some of your thoughts.
You know, Larry, when I listened to him about people having too much money, I thought about our feed yard in Boardman. It's a 50,000 head feed yard, and we have 7 different programs to meet basically the West Coast. We have a pasture raised program. We have a non-GMO program. We have a GAP 1 program. We have a GAP 4 program. We have a Tyson Open Prairie Natural Angus program. We have a generic program. It's all to meet the customer's needs. It all takes a different level of management, different kinds of feedstuffs, different handling facilities. And so it really struck me that we're doing it, and we're seeing it from the customer.
That's excellent. An example, a classic example of the things going on in the industry. Dan, from your perspective, a lot of things you're working on. Point out a few of them.
Yeah, absolutely. As I think about the technology advancements that Dr. Catlett talked about, and my mind was roaming through picking each of those things and thinking about how they might impact the cattle business, and specifically the seed stock sector of the cattle business. I know that we've already had a number of quantum leaps, so to speak, in terms of new technologies, whether that be information technology or genomics, and I understand that that has really changed the business that we work in, not just for us, but every part of the beef chain. And I think ahead to the challenges that we face, but also the opportunities that we have in front of us. And there will be some challenges to adopt some of this technology and to digest it. And I'm also thinking about some of the opportunities we have from an educational standpoint, how our organization can better serve our membership to prepare them for the changes that come and position them to be as successful as possible in the future.
It's going to take tackling some of these with an open mind, isn't it? John, on your end, share a few thoughts that came to mind. Your company certainly does some very progressive things. Relate them back to some of the comments Dr. Catlett made.
Well, to me, it sort of validates a few things that we're trying to pursue. As he talks about millennials, really, I look at that as the consumer, or a segment of the consumer, and it tells me that we must better understand our consumer. So as I look at some of the comments he made, it points out, in some cases, don't take this wrong, how weak we are and how vulnerable we are, but how much opportunity there is. When you look at aligning with consumer needs, the first thing you've got to do is understand what those needs are. And I think we as an industry have not done a very good job at that generally. Some have. You take what Beef Northwest has done, and they're really aligning with a specific need that's out there, and I'm sure as I'm sitting here that they're receiving value for that. And when I listen to economists, I always look for that word value, especially in a predictive manner. And I think that that's really where our company is trying to continue to drive and continue to focus. And that is to, first of all, understand that target and identify that target, and then build products to meet and exceed the expectations identified by that target. So some of his comments were very refreshing, encouraging to me, because it validates some of these strange and very challenging concepts that we're putting in place: alignment, supply chain, connectivity, verification of practices. Some things that we take for granted as producers, and we're actually going to have a consumer that's not going to allow us to do that in the future. They're going to want to know. They're going to expect transparency, and we're going to have to stand behind that. So I look at those as challenges, but also to me they point out certain vulnerabilities that we have.
One of the interesting things, John, that he pointed out is how technology has impacted all of us in ways, many ways, but specific to your business or the things that you do as part of your business. Over the last 5 to 10 years, what technologies do you think has had the biggest impact on you or the program you're working with?
Well, probably I have it in my pocket, but I can't hold it up here. I like visuals, but the whole communication and information tools that are now available that we didn't have just 5 years ago. I'm pretty old, and most of you that know me know that I am, and I remember the day when faxes were the newest way to communicate, speedy and quick. And now we have our phones and mobile applications and ease and adaptability to effective communication. To me, that's the biggest one. If I just had to point out one, I can trade cattle now and not even make a phone call. I know what markets are doing instantaneously. And again, similar to my comments earlier, that there is a big challenge there, because if you're not up to speed, you will be left behind. And the point, these cattle, this product that we choose to raise has such extreme value, you can't afford to be left behind. So it's almost a constant challenge every day when we get up is, okay, how are we going to take advantage of that very seamless communication and information stream that we have now available to us? And are we taking advantage of all of it that is there? And I'm certain we're not. But that is probably the one area that has changed the most for us and our company in the last 5 years.
I certainly could not relate more. Yesterday I needed some material, and I told my office manager, fax it to me, and she said, "Larry, we don't have a fax machine anymore. I'll scan it and email it to you." So I have the material, but it didn't come by fax. Dan, in your world, obviously a lot going on in genetics. What specific aspects of technology do you think have had the biggest impact in terms of what you're doing?
Yeah, I think, obviously there's tremendous things happening in genomics with a lot more in front of us that will continue to impact our business. I think a lot, though, about the information technology as well and how it's changed in the time that I've been involved in genetic evaluation programs. I think back to 20 years ago as a graduate student at the University of Georgia, when the Angus sire evaluation was run, it was run on the same mainframe as had the university accounting system and the library card catalog. And so nothing can run, we couldn't have any access to that till 12:30 in the morning. And if that process ran and there was something that didn't come out quite right, then we'd have another chance the next day at 12:30 in the morning. And that's just how the process was, because computer technology was so limiting that and even though some of the EPDs you get today look exactly the same, they're quite different. Now we live in a world where, last night was Tuesday night, and many of you are well aware that the cutoff for the weekly Angus evaluation is 5 o'clock on Tuesday. I had to remember last night when I set my phone down on my nightstand to go to bed to silence it, because it's going to buzz all night. Because there are applications running back at the home office in St. Joe, reports that are showing up on my phone on how the evaluation is running, where it's at, are there anything that we need to address, those sort of things. That information coming to me in that format is obviously a very different world than what we experienced really not that long ago. And really the way that our members access that information, we still do prints and paper sire summaries because I think they're nice promotional tools and there's a lot of good educational information in the front. Some of you may have remembered the day when you actually requested a diskette be mailed to you so that you could do a sire sort. Some of you have done that. Obviously the internet accessibility to our database and the way that people are able to use that has really been a tremendous change in the way that cattle are bred and marketed.
Thanks, Dan. Ron, from your standpoint of the feeding industry?
Larry, I heard Lowell Catlett speak 30 years ago. He talked about nanotechnology. Right. And I thought about the little things that control the big things that we do. And one of the little things that we use are EID tags and RFID tags. Using those tags, we can track those animals from the time we buy those animals from a rancher all the way through our system. We can tell when those animals come to drink, when they eat, what they're doing, if they're sick or they're not sick. When they go into the packing plant, we can tell which animal, which carcass goes back to which ranch. And so just that little thing is that technology is helping us track what we're buying and what, as John talked about, what the value of that product is. And it's becoming a differentiated product. It's not just a generic, on average kind of product anymore. We are paying very close attention to the kind of cattle that we're buying and what they're doing for us economically. And technology is allowing us to do that.
Rick, I'm sure over the last few years, as rapidly as this is occurring in industry, there are many things you've seen. Just point out a few of them.
Yeah, the sum total of all the change going on in medicine is pretty graphically high. Trying to reduce it to what matters to the folks sitting in the audience, I suppose I would say it this way. Not that long ago, if I pulled a virus from a sick calf, I got an analysis, but that analysis wasn't specific. It wasn't specific to where that virus came from. It wasn't specific to the origin. It wasn't specific to any of the sort of history of the pathogen. We're moving very quickly into an arena when we pull out a bug, we can tell you where it came from, how long it's been there, and what it's going to do next. That's a big deal. It's a big deal because it won't be very long, and if you remember Lowell talking about the smartphone with a little dish on the back, it won't be very long when a drop of blood from your cow, calf, bull can be analyzed real time for multiple pathogens and perhaps a genetic coding. That means, quite frankly, that it's a huge opportunity for us to know more about our herds and, most importantly, to tell the consumer how good a job we're doing. Of all the things that we're doing here today, ladies and gentlemen, the single biggest challenge in front of us is to convince the people that are buying our product that we are the best stewards of animal care, husbandry, and all the products that go into it. The challenging news for some of us is that a whole bunch of people are asking us questions that they never used to ask. Dr. Sybil, how much antibiotic do I give that animal, and why do I do it? And why do you give the animals antibiotics on arrival? Do all the animals need antibiotics? Those are hard questions. And those hard questions are, technology is going to help us get through that. It's never been a better time to sort of be in production agriculture. I've had the great joy of doing this business in lots and lots of countries of the world, and I can tell you, we got it really, really good here. But as Lowell and several have said, we're going to have to stay on top of it. And if we get complacent, our competition is going to blow by us.
Rick, let's keep going on that subject because I think that's really important. The conference here focuses on the story of the steak or the story of producing food, and that's the business that we're in. As you look to the future, take those just a little bit further because certainly I can concur as a brand, as certified Angus beef, and we think about the consumer type questions we get. Antibiotics rank very, very high in terms of consumer concerns. So looking to the future, how do we take the amazing technology that we have, but keeping the product in mind, tie all of this together to ultimately message this industry?
Well, I'm going to be treading on some ground that's still undecided. So I'm going to do the Lowell Catlett thing that says, I'm going to give you some ideas, but it may not happen just like this. But I think there's some models out there that are probably going to be used. It is entirely possible and highly probable that every time you treat an animal on your farm, ranch, feedlot, you are going to have to record it, and it's going to have to be tied to an electronic ID. And I think the differentiation of that animal and the meat, the protein that it produces moving forward, is going to be segregated for a value proposition based on how much or how little or not at all. And those are some of the things that the consumer folks are telling us are a big deal. And be careful here. There is a reason why this category is so polarizing. It is the single biggest animal health product category that interfaces with every dimension of human and human health. And don't forget that.
Excellent thoughts. Ron, the feeding sector is really close to that consumer in the sense that the product, as it leaves your operation, really then enters through the packing chain very quickly to the consumer. Some of the things that you mentioned, a number of programs that you've started, talk in a little bit more detail of some of the things you think the feedlot is doing that really will be impacting both product, but the kind of product that we are putting out in the future. Share a few of those thoughts.
One of our big pushes is for natural beef, and the story of the steak, Larry, and I think it was in the program here. It's about cooperating, collaborating, and sharing information to get to that end product for that producer. So one of the things that we're doing is we developed a program. It just came out. It's called Rancher's Advantage, and we are getting with seed stock producers, and we're getting with their customers that are buying bulls from those seed stock producers. The seed stock producers throws in $5 a head. We throw in up to $60 a head, some up front and some after the cattle are harvested. And what this does, it sends a message back through the chain, all the way back to the producer, to pay for the kind of cattle that that producer wants. The natural cattle, it's a always natural program. So if they get sick, they're out of the program if we have to treat them with antibiotics. So if these cattle can stay under 10% out of program cattle, the producer will get $20 a head. If the cattle convert better against their contemporaries, they can get another $30 a head. And so what we're doing is we're looking at what the consumer wants, a natural product, and we're sending that signal all the way back through the chain to the producer, and he's getting real dollars. And what we're doing with the seed stock guy is we're bringing him into the chain. He's got a vested interest that goes back to that producer too, but then he can work with that producer in developing a mating system that works for the market also.
That's excellent. Dan, I know you share a philosophy I have. I think genomics is going to have a huge impact in the cattle industry over the next 5-10 years. Some thoughts in terms of how you think that might occur and some of the things we're likely to see and how it impacts product that we're going to put out there.
Yeah, absolutely, Larry. I think that over time, that like any new technology, the value proposition will improve. I think that over time, the amount of information that you will get from genomic testing will improve relative to the cost that you incur to do that, and so it becomes a much more widely based technology and used beyond certainly the seed stock segment into other portions. We're already seeing tremendous uptake in our GeneMax products for commercial heifer selection, for example, and I think that the ultimate destination of that technology is really at all segments of the industry, whether that's feeder cattle and even on the processing line in terms of categorizing product based on tests online in some form or fashion someday in the future. There's also interesting things coming along biotechnology-wise in terms of, and I hate to use the word genetic modification, but really what it is. And of course, we've not been in a position to really have to face the GMO issue at this point, but there's certainly technologies that have a tremendous amount of progress, that possibility to make very subtle changes to individual animals that might add significant value, what we call gene editing. The opportunity to take an embryo and make one or two changes to that to remove some things that might potentially be undesirable and move that animal forward and still have a contribution to it despite a couple of things that you might not have liked. That technology is here, and the opportunity for us to take advantage of it is there if we so choose. We'll have to think about breed policies and those sort of things. That what does it mean to a registered Angus animal if it's had a gene edited? and what does that mean to their pedigree and their performance and those sort of things. But I think the other thing that, as much as genomics is important, genomics really depends on the data that members and customers submit. I think we'll cast a very broad net in terms of collecting additional traits for those that are important in certain scenarios. I'm thinking about environmental adaptability specifically, because the kinds of environments when Angus cattle are produced across this country very widely, even though we have a sort of a unified consumer in the end, where the process begins is quite different, and certainly they're doing a better job of characterizing environmental differences and designing genetics that fit specific environments, I think is something that technology will allow.
And it's going to be exciting times, I don't think any question in it. As we move into some of these technologies, the wording we use, which you alluded to, is so important. There is no question that genetic editing or something of that nature, as compared to genetically modified, that is a tough term to really work in terms of the consuming public. John, on your end, as you look at some of the things, you're certainly very close in some of the programs you're doing and ultimately to that product that you think the industry needs to be doing and that consumer is going to appreciate once we do it. So share a few of your thoughts kind of moving forward.
Well, okay, so in terms of consumer expectations, I think we need to remember they expect a good eating experience every time. And we have, as a business, we have done a good job, I think, in bettering that score. But even today, we can do much better. We probably have, as a protein goes, the least consistent product made available to the consumer. May not like what I said, but that is the truth. And yet, when we look at the value proposition associated with our product compared to the other proteins, that we can win. Ours tastes good. Ours is juicy. It is flavorful. And we just need to do a much better job of sorting through, and it can be done through genetics, it can be done through animal health, it can be done through management, or better yet, all combined, so that we can deliver a more consistent product on a consistent basis. That is the point in which we have a satisfied consumer and somebody that's willing to dip into their pocket and actually address that point I made earlier about value, pay more for our product, and be satisfied with their investment.
This was really kind of the predominant part of the discussion that we wanted to get into with our panel. We do have a few minutes left, so get prepared, panel members. Just any closing thoughts we have here in the audience or in attendance at the conference, well in excess of 1,000 Angus Association members. We represent a huge part of the beef cattle industry. Any closing comments you would like to make relative to the side of the business you're in to the Angus industry? Is there something that you would like to share from your perspective as either a cattle feeder, a geneticist, working with some of the type programs you do, John, in your program, or Rick, from an animal health? Just any closing thoughts you'd like to share with the audience? Rick?
I guess I'm up. Yeah, I'll try and say this. It's an extraordinary time to be in animal agriculture. It is one of the most exciting, dynamic sort of arenas that I've seen. And I can say this with great sort of composure. No one can compete the way we can in North America. Let's continue to evolve, let's continue to improve, and let's continue to figure out how to differentiate. And I think the next generation is going to be as pleased as we are.
Nicely said. Ron, thoughts you'd share?
I think we have a great opportunity to work together as an industry at all segments. That I think the tagline, cooperating, collaborating, and sharing information, should be a real hallmark of how we address our industry over the next 5, 10, into the future. Like John said, we've got a great product, and I think we can work together as an industry through all segments to make it a better product and give that consumer that stake that they're really feeling good about that investment, like John said.
Dan, from your perspective?
Yeah, I think that something I'd like all people, folks here, to keep in mind, and certainly you're, by being here, that you're already stepping down this path, but we all have a challenge in front of us to process all the new information that's coming. In my old job as a college professor, I always encourage my students toward the end of each semester to really, take it upon themselves to become a lifetime learner, that your education doesn't end when we hand you a diploma and you walk across the stage. And you folks know that as well as anyone. And just by being here, obviously, you're taking advantage of that opportunity. But I'd encourage you, as your time allows, and of course you have a lot of things going in your individual businesses, but do the best you can to keep up with the technology, to ask the questions that you're wondering about. Let us know as an organization how we can help you, and certainly lots of other information sources out there as well. But I think the opportunity to take advantage of a lot of new technologies around the corner can be certainly very profitable in the long run for a lot of folks. But the first step, I think, is learning about the technology and seeing how it applies to your individual operations.
Excellent. John, any closing thoughts you'd like to share with the group here from the perspective of the business you bring?
Well, perhaps a challenge or two as I see it. We've sort of had a harmonizing message here around working together, and that sounds good, and it's sort of a kumbaya. We can all get excited about that, but at the end of the day, when we leave this meeting, what are we going to do? Really, what are we going to do? Are we going to roll up our sleeves and do something about that? Because I know Ron and I are probably the two that are most closely associated with this challenge. It's very difficult. It takes enormous commitment. So if we work together with ranchers or a rancher and we identify good cattle and those cattle fit a program, whatever that program may be, we need to stick together. And what the challenge is, Larry, is many times the market. So we feel committed, and then all of a sudden the market takes a jab one way or the other, and all of a sudden those decisions go out the window, and we're back to a very segmented business. We can't do that. We can't do that and be competitive in the protein marketplace. That's one point. Second one would be transparency. I don't mean to overuse that word, but when we talk about this consumer, this millennial, that when Lowell pulls out his little phone, he's absolutely right. That consumer, that millennial is going to have the opportunity to look at us. They're going to. It's happening. And actually, some of us are trying to drive to make that happen because there's advantages to being to market first with that kind of a value proposition and with that kind of attribute. But when I talk about transparency, I said it earlier and I'll reiterate it, we have to be willing to stand behind it. So if we're doing these good practices and we have the beautiful blue sky and the green grasses and how we take care of our cattle and so on, well then let's be willing to stand behind that and say, come see. Whether it be chefs that the CAB does and bring on Ranch Tour, come see. And I'll tell you, we better be ready, because if there's a bad apple amongst us, and there are, we're not all holier than thou, we have to clean up our act, because that will not be allowed. One bad experience will ripple effect and destroy years of work that we've done around BQA and best management practices and genetics and taking care of these animals and transferring those animals from a ranch to a feed yard to a processor and to an end user. So I guess I would leave by saying we really have to be understanding that it's going to take some hard work, and we have to be very committed to this concept of transparency, because the consumer, it's there. It will be more than an expectation. It will absolutely be reality.
John, that's excellent. And as a company, the Certified Angus Beef Program has worked with many of you in the audience, taking these groups, the food service groups, the retail groups, the chefs, even sometimes consumers or consumers editors, and transparency is so important. And we have a great story to tell. I mean, the way we produce beef, we really don't have to slide a lot of things underneath the table and ignore. We have an absolutely great story to tell in this industry, and I think that's what makes the beef industry unique and makes the future of this industry really one that we can get pretty excited about. Let's show a great Angus appreciation to this panel. They did a great job.